can you hear me? Yes. Hi. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We were just waiting for a few more people to trickle in. We know it's a very busy night tonight. We saw everybody coming from the concert and the banquets, the sports banquets and everything else, so we appreciate your time. I'm Tracy Lowry, and this is Robin Cook. We are representing the NTPA tonight in conjunction with this lovely panel, which we will introduce in a moment. But we wanted to really present this program to you guys because this was some feedback that we were getting from the community. I have my third child going through New Trier right now, and there are so many resources that I had no idea that were even available to us for the first two kids coming through, and you always kind of find out resources when you need them, but it's also kind of nice to know and share them with your neighbors and things like that. So we just thought it would be a great idea to get this group of people together to really share what we have in our backyard, in our neighborhood, in our building that is really that we should be able to spread and take advantage of. So again, we thank you all for your time tonight, and we'll introduce you all, and thank you.
Actually, Chris, you can
Yes.
introduce. I'll just introduce. Again, thank you. And as Tracy said, this actually came from the community. There's a parent university page that I highly recommend you know about on the New Trier website. It is under the parents and community, I think. And that's where we post all of our historical and our upcoming Parent U presentations. It is really a wonderful resource, and our contact's on there too. So if you have other ideas or needs, please feel free to email us. This is how this one came about. People were asking, what are these resources? So again, this was really community New Trier parent led, and we're really excited to have this. We actually have a couple of new programs coming up this year for that reason. So please look on them. If you see something from Parent U, it is sponsored by the NTPA, so thank you for everyone who's paying their dues too, because this helps for those things. You didn't really come to listen to me and Tracy, so I'm just going to introduce Chris Mitchell. I don't know if you have had the opportunity to meet Chris. Many of you know about the new structure around advisories. Chris has that responsibility. He is new this year to New Trier, and we've actually had some of the opportunity to meet with him in some of our NTPA meetings, and so really appreciative. And actually, Chris took the lead along with Tiffany Myers to really put this together, so really appreciate it. A little bit about Chris. He is serving as the Associate Principal for Student Services. Experience includes Assistant Principal at Glenbard West High School, who sometimes we don't like because sometimes they beat us in sports and sometimes we beat them in things, so whatever. And he was there for the past 9 years. Prior to that, he served at the lead dean of students at St. Charles North High School. Chris, we're really excited to have you and really appreciate already the partnership you've shown to us with the NTPA and the parent community. So I'm going to turn it over to you. One last thing, you all got many of you got a postcard, card when you came in, note cards. That's really for us to ask questions. We appreciate it if you write them down. That helps us to keep track of what kind of questions parents are asking, so we know what kind of things need to be communicated. We obviously are also recording it, so you can tell all of your friends, but that is a really great way for us to be able to provide that to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. I do have to admit, when I first got to New Trier, one of the first things that I heard was that I was going to host a parent university about student resources, and I thought for sure it was a practical joke. Thought they were pulling one on me right away. And as soon as I learned that they weren't, I said, I need to go get some people who know the ins and outs of this place and all the hard work that happens. So thank you tonight for choosing us. I know there is a lot of competition for other things that are moving around our community, so we appreciate the time that you're going to spend with us. Before we get going too much, I would like the panel to take a second to introduce themselves and tell you what their roles are.
See how loud this is. Can you hear me? Thank you. I'm Sarah Gerudis, and I wear a number of hats in the building. I teach in the social studies department, and then on the student support services side, I am one of the MTSS coaches for the graduating class team of the class of 2024, and I am also a GAP teacher.
Can you explain what those are?
You want me to do that now, or you want it? It's coming. It's coming.
Yes, that was a teaser there.
I'm Kate Fosnacht. I am a special ed teacher. I'm also one of the MTSS coaches for the graduating class SEMA 2024. And I'm also a strategic reading teacher at this campus, which more to come on that as well.
I'll go this one. I'm Dana Ouimet. I'm the Northfield Support Services Coordinator. So I teach strategic studies, GAP, Bridges, and I'm also one of the MTSS coaches for the class of 2027.
My name is Tiffany Myers. I am the social work department chair. I only have one job.
One big one.
I'm Rebecca Boston. I'm the Health Services Department Chair.
So this evening, we are going to cover a number of topics and hope to explain. Now, we're going to try to balance our acronyms and our jargon because not everyone lives inside of a school, but we do feel it's appropriate to use some of it because you'll see that, whether it be on the website or as you are doing any of your own independent research about education, you're going to run into things like MTSS, and if you've looked on our website, GAP and Guided Study and ACC, there are a lot of acronyms. So we'll do our best to avoid as many as unneeded ones as we need to, but we'll also do some explaining about what some of those things are. So our hope tonight is to, one, get a chance to connect with parents, but also explain in the different areas that we help our students what the supports are and the difference between supports that are open to everybody and then some of the work that we do and something that you'll hear called MTSS in our graduating class teams. And we'll go through what those things mean, but that is a system that we use, and it's the full school from the curriculum to the supports that we have in place, to all the team members and how we review our students and see who's making adequate progress, and when those struggle, how we respond. It also is connected to the parent organizations like NTPA that help us. MTSS is a huge umbrella that really encompasses the entire school. So we'll dig into that a little bit. We want to talk a little bit about the student experience and what our hope is for the students and what they get with some of the skills that we're reinforcing that they've learned at home and they're also taught here. And then we'll break our supports down into academic, emotional, and physical health supports. And all of us will have some portion of this presentation to kind of talk about, and we'll be here for the panel at the end for the questions. So to get things kicked off, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of our hope and for our students as they matriculate through their 4 years at New Trier High School. You'll see this. These are the characteristics of a New Trier graduate here. The picture that we have, the logo that we have here, and that's really at the central of how we try to go about planning. That's part of our mission statement. These are the things that we want our students, the skills that we want our students to obtain throughout their time. And there are ways through their classroom, through their advisor program, and through other supports that we have here that we hope those students will get to those goals and they will flourish. I really want to talk a lot about the student experience because it's really important for us to think about, one, as a school and as a partner with the home, how we help our students become resilient and have a healthy balance. That's something that's extremely important to us. And some of the things that, some of the questions that came in beforehand, I kind of want to frame some of those now before we move too much further. We know school can be a pressured place for students, and we want to find a way to help set limits and make sure that our students know that they have support, and we want them to build in time within their day to have a healthy balance. So we do offer things like free periods. Many of our students don't have classes the entire time. Those free periods are really a nice tool that can be used for students to access some of the supports we'll talk about later. Things at home about time management and setting limits for screen time, setting limits for things like when it's time to go to bed, and routine. And that's hard. I have a freshman myself. Some of our panel members also have high school students as well and other children, and we know those are very hard things. One of those explicit questions we got was, what are some tips for that? And it's really important, tools that can be used. Many people, and my kids didn't know, you can see how much time you have on your screen by literally just going to your settings. So I have my daughter track that and say, please make sure that you're tracking that. If it becomes an issue, then mom and dad will step in and tell you that it's an issue. It's just a way to have some recognition that many times, I've done it myself, I didn't realize how much time I spent on my phone until I looked at that. So I think having those conversations and digging in and setting those limits, healthy boundaries, will help all of our students and ourselves create balance in our lives. There's other things. Diet's important, and the sleep pattern is very, very important. I know that's difficult for students because they are engaged in things inside and outside of school, But trying to just have a healthy habit of, this is where you do homework, hopefully this is when you do homework, and this is when that time ends, so you can start to set a balance for them, to model for them what we hope for them. Being a strong advocate for themselves, that's something that we've recognized throughout the years, and we do a senior survey when our kids go to college. One of the things that they always say that they learned well while they were at New Trier was to become a self-advocate. They are used to talking to their faculty members, their teachers, and it's not hard for them to make an appointment. So when they go to college or to the next step outside post high school, they don't feel that nervousness, that anxious, that anxiety. So I'm struggling, I know I need to go get some help, I need to ask somebody. They're kind of used to that because they have that structure here. So we want our kids to make sure that they know that when they need help, they need to go get help and know how to get help. And then staying engaged academically and socially, that's part of that. They're engaged, they know how to maneuver through this system. And one thing that I think is important, these are skills that are learned. They need to be worked out. And they also know, we know that kids will have some struggle with those. And that's just a natural maturation. We want our kids to have struggles when they're protected, when they're at home, and when they're here with us at school. We want them to be able to go through those things, have those setbacks, and learn how to get through those with the help from home, with the help from school as well, because then they learn those invaluable skills. Without those skills and with all obstacles being erased for them, it becomes harder for them to navigate when they do leave home and they do go on to the next step. Robin mentioned the graduating class team, so we wanted to make sure that we talked a little bit about this brand new structure. I think it was an awesome idea because my job would not exist if it wasn't for this idea. So I'm very happy that they decided to come up with this new structure. The idea behind the graduating class teams is that you're going to have a core group of people, and the jobs are listed there to your right, from advisor all the way down to the MTSS coaches we're talking about, the post-high school counseling liaisons, social work, psychology, assistant principal, and advisor chair. This group, this team, they will travel with the students throughout their time. So they are going to, you're going to get an experience where you're going to get to know, and they're going to get to know the students in their class, and they're going to travel with them through graduation. What that does is it allows us not to have a lot of entry and re-entry things where a student has to reintegrate and make new relationships and not know it. And for our families, we hope it brings consistency to the people. It's a big school with a lot of staff members, and it can be very confusing. So we hope these graduating class teams will give us the opportunity to have some consistency. So brand new this year, some of the roles that these teams will go through is data review. They look at grade data and attendance data. Have you heard anything about attendance? It's a little bit important this year. We're trying to make sure that we're paying attention to it. So these teams will weekly review data to make sure that we know where students are at, and we know if they're getting the supports that they need, if they're not hitting the marks or the thresholds, whether that be grades or absences that we're looking for. And they'll help to connect through our advisor program to help those students. They also have some problem solving, so when we recognize those students are on a watch list and they haven't been progressing and we continue to see an issue, they'll have a problem-solving meeting to see if there is some type of intervention that needs to be put in place, targeted, which is a word you've heard before tonight that we'll dig into a little bit more. They're in charge of 504 plans, as well as, one thing I don't want to forget to mention here is this team is developing an experience through the advisor program, where we're going to through freshman year all the way through senior, we're looking to have a story of what the students have learned. Each one of these years, we're going to try to create some consistency and continuity to the important parts of our advisor program, whether that be in Be Brave, Be Kind, Be Proud, into our belonging, into school and what that means to be a Trevian, or into the service portion of that. We want to create this story that the kids will be able to go back and really be part of. So our advisor chairs and our assistant principals are really an integral part of designing that experience. And now, I'm going to get some help now, and a couple other people are going to talk about MTSS and student supports.
So, as Chris mentioned, New Trier uses this MTSS framework, and it's really meant to be a proactive, all-encompassing, universal approach. The students truly at the center of this model, and we have all of our wonderful supports here at New Trier, helping to guide that student, keep them covered, help them along through those difficult times. So our advisor program is truly at the center with that student, and that's really the gateway and access point and the conduit to all the other supports within the building. But under this umbrella, we have our interventions, we have our academic assistance center, we have our health services, all of our social work support groups, and the SSC, our social work support center. We have our peer tutoring, and so this is really meant to provide these universal supports to all students at that core level within their curriculum, within their classes, within their day-to-day lives. And then from there, if we need a little bit more of a targeted intervention, that's where we can kind of move up that pyramid and offer more support to specific needs. So it carries on. We start at this ground level universal under this umbrella, and then we kind of ramp it up if needed, if the team feels that the data is there to support it, if the student needs a little bit more support in a specific area, we can really drill in and target and put forward one of those interventions.
And the framework that we've used to support students has evolved over the 20 years that I've worked at New Trier, and I've been fortunate to really be a part of that and all the different acronyms. But MTSS, I think, is here to stay. You'll hear it at other schools and other districts, and one more time, I just wanna, it's the multi-tiered system of support. So really what that means is that helping a struggling student or helping any student isn't just about academics, it's about the whole child, right? And everything that encompasses that goes into seeing the child flourish and thrive in high school. As we rolled this out to staff and faculty, our constant mantra was MTSS is everyone, everywhere. Everyone in this building, from the person who greets you at the door, to the teacher in the classroom, to the assistant principal, and everyone in between is part of the system to support all of our students. Kind of more, I guess, geared then toward the academic side and the work that we're doing with students in classrooms is the pyramid on the right, which is kind of the tiers that we use for identifying work that needs to be done with students in their classrooms when they're struggling. So for instance, let's say a student has a test that they took and it didn't go so well. Perhaps the teacher might employ a tier 1 strategy to give that student a little bit of extra support. And those can look like all different kinds of things, inviting them in during a free period, going to the academic assistance center. There's literally hundreds of them. And when we get to the point where the student continues to struggle, then potentially we move up the pyramid to higher levels of support, which we'll, I think, briefly touch on. What else?
Yeah, and I think what Sarah said, this has evolved over the years. If any of you are in education and have heard RTI, that was response to intervention, and that was more of a reactive approach, and this MTSS framework, the multi-tiered system of supports, is truly meant to be proactive, to start the students all with access to all these supports, and then kind of move up and target greater needs as the student progresses and as they need as individuals.
So rather than using things like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, which are really technical terms and can kind of change depending on what we're talking about, we're going to frame the rest of our presentation when we talk about the differentiated supports is global, and that means that that's something that is available to everybody in the school. They can access it, or they're accessing it by sitting in class. Anyone that's in school here can go to those. And then we're going to use the word targeted. And targeted is more around those things that our teams and our advisors and our advisor chairs and our coaches, those are the things that are targeted based on certain metrics that we use to help our students when they're not progressing in those different areas. So we'll talk about those in that fashion so you have that language before. Kate mentioned something that's extremely important. And it's something that I think needs yet another mention here is just the importance of our advisor program and the connection to home, the student, and the advisor. That's really at the heart of how things get done at New Trier and why it makes New Trier a special place. Throughout my career, I've never seen anything that puts so much resource and so much attention towards the betterment of students and the connection of students to each other and the school. It's an amazing piece. It's a major financial piece of what makes New Trier. It's a cost for us to do it, but it's the right thing to do because we have, rather than having possibly 8 guidance counselors to help students figure out their way through just courses, we have over 160 of advisors that are there to help the student understand the school, themselves, and their place in it, and help them figure out their path in all the different programs of study that we have. So as a parent, I would say to you is that if you have questions or concerns about your student, obviously talking to the teacher if it's an academic concern is a great first step. I would also, even before that, talk to your student and see if they know what the issue is and see if they can help to advocate for themselves. But if it becomes a pattern, or you've noticed it in different places, or they have an emotional connection issue or a belonging issue, the advisor is the right place to go. They're going to know how to navigate the system the most effectively. They're going to know who to talk to, and people are going to expect that it's the advisor that comes and talks to all of them to empower the team to make really good decisions. Because all of those meetings that we have with all the people I showed in the graduating class teams, they can't happen without the advisor there. It has to have the advisor there because we can look at numbers, we can look at lots of different graphs, but we can't know the story without that advisor. So I just urge you to hear that and know that, and really talk up the advisor to your student so that helps their connection with them as well, and make that your point person throughout the journey through New Trier. As I mentioned, we're going to divide up our supports and talk about them in a global and targeted fashion, and we're going to start with academics.
Can I just add one more thing about the advisor system?
I will go back. Look at that.
I've had the pleasure of, I think this is my 6th group, and it's one of my favorite parts of working at New Trier, 100%, and especially now that I have high school children of my own, just knowing that someone has eyes on your kid is a really, really big deal. And you may have your student come home. I know that sometimes they're like, we don't do anything in advisory. I can't enough emphasize with parents how much goes on behind the scenes in this program, where a teacher will just give me a call like, hey, I noticed that they're a little bit off today. Is there anything going on? Hey, I noticed there were some tears. Let me check in with them. Those conversations and phone calls are commonplace because people are watching out for the kids in this building. It's pretty awesome. So I just would, 100% like your go-to is with your student and asking how they're doing and how things are going. But if they are struggling, I just can't encourage parents enough to reach out to advisors for assistance and advice.
Okay, so the global supports, again, we kind of talked about those universal supports that are available for all students. So our global supports, our teachers' office hours is historically so important here at this institution. Teachers pride themselves on making themselves available, working with the students during free periods, that the students have that time. So we really empower students to take advantage of that, come and meet with them. Often you'll see the math department filled with 40, 50 students during any period, especially during the lunch period. They're getting in there and meeting with their teachers, and they really try to make themselves as accessible as possible. And that's always, a really, really great place to start if your student is having any trouble in a class. We have the personal learning time, so we do have those free periods, and we have tremendous resources and space here available for the students to go. That picture right there, is just right outside the cafeteria, that common space in between the library and the cafeteria. Students will be hanging out in those little nooks throughout the hallways. We give them that, we empower them, again, to use that time as they need, to go to the library, to go to the help desk and fix their iPad, whatever it may be. We encourage them to really take advantage of that time and use it to their advantage. We have the Academic Assistance Center, which is open all periods of the day, as another resource for students to go in, work, get some help if needed. Library services are phenomenal. Do you want to speak?
Yeah, it's a very open space, especially during lunch. It's a really nice space where students can go and get more of a quiet atmosphere, more of a study-like atmosphere in there. It fills up quickly, There are a lot of students that want to take advantage of that. But other resources that our library offers is there's obviously, the books and periodicals and that, but they also have digital and online resources that are available to kids 24/7 through the website. There's nearly 50 subscriptions to different databases that they can use. And what's really nice is Monday through Thursday, it's actually open until 6 p.m. So past the end of the school day, the library is open for students to be in there as well to extend their studies. If they have to wait for practice or they get off of practice and have to wait for a ride, that's a nice quiet space for them to go into. I'll touch on post-high school counseling as well. We talked about the advisor program in there. They're a big part of that. They will take some small group guidance into those spaces, and they'll talk about next steps. They'll introduce things like Maya Learning, which is replacing Naviance as our post-secondary curriculum. And they'll go in there and do those things during that time. They offer a ton of evening programs and webinars and newsletters. They'll put on things like a gap fair and a choice fair later in the year with some of our schools around here to give students other options for the post-secondary that might not be entering right into a collegiate setting right after that.
And post-high school counseling also has drop-in days on anchor days. So students can go in and check in with a counselor. You can be a sophomore if you want to ask a question. Junior, senior, they're open on those anchor days, which is really nice. And then we talked a little bit about the Academic Assistance Center. We have one at each campus, and it's really a phenomenal support. Drop-in tutoring, we have a really robust student tutoring program, and they are well-trained tutors available, eager to work with students in math, in reading and writing support, and that's, again, available first through 8th period, so every period of the day it's there. And then we have the Test Makeup Center, which a lot of students use if they're absent, if they need extended time. Sometimes that's where they'll finish up their tests, which is great. And that's also offered all throughout the day and even after school. I think he's open until 4:30, 4:15, 4:30.
I think. Yeah. And I think, I notice with students, I generally find kids either are really super comfortable going to talk to their teachers or like deathly afraid of it. And there's not a lot of in between. And if your kid falls on the latter side of that, please reach out to your child's advisor. That is, I have absolutely sat in on meetings before, kind of problem solved with the kid, like, why are you scared to do this? What's going on? Or even thinking about, like, sometimes they're like, I don't even know, like, what I would even ask. Okay, well, let's sit down and let's write it out together. Let's figure it out. And do you want me to go with you? Because I would be happy to do that. We don't want them going off to college having never set foot in a teacher's office, right? Just because they're too intimidated. And 99% of the time they walk out of that meeting, as you know, feeling so good about themselves and feeling like, oh gosh, that was not hard to do at all. And it only takes 5 or 10 minutes too. I think sometimes there's this notion that like, I have to go and spend my whole free period. No. It's like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, get a little bit of help, have them take a look at your notes. And the other thing it does too, and we want to remember, we want our kids to start building relationships with their teachers because those are the teachers they're going to ask to write letters of recommendation for them too. And I can speak from experience, it's a heck of a lot easier writing that letter when I really know the student, establishing those relationships.
All right, from Global, we'll head on to our academic targeted supports.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as we said, like Global is available to everybody, but we might determine, I don't know, can you hear me okay? Yeah. We might determine that a student might need just a little bit more support or an intervention, and that's why it's targeted. It's with the student's needs in mind. So we have several opportunities for that to happen. First, as we said, the AAC is global. Students can drop in and get support in the moment that they need it, but we also have an AAC referral system. And so what this might look like is they could, a teacher or an advisor could make a referral for the student to actually kind of just drop in and get a little bit more specific help. And so that might look like a math teacher might say, this test didn't go so great for you. I want you to go meet with a math tutor and find out what happened on the test. So it could look like test corrections. It could be content that was missed. It could be for organizational strategies as well. So there's all kinds of referrals that could happen that help the student just get their foot in the door to maybe get a little bit more support, especially if there's self-advocacy skills and dropping in maybe isn't working so well for them. So a teacher could put that in, then the AAC center gets it, and then the student gets a pass to come meet and sets up a time that's convenient for both the student and the tutors as well. So that's a little bit about the AAC referral system that happens at both campuses. At the Northfield campus, we have a couple more. Ours are based on retired new Trier teachers. So we have a couple more subjects. Sometimes we feel freshmen might just need a little bit more support in things like Spanish or science. And ours are open a little bit before school and after school so that students can access it at any time, including the school day and during their lunch and study hall as well. The other support is GAP. That stands for Guided Assistance Program, or you might see it as Study Skills. It's an executive functioning support, so we go over things like time management, how to be organized, both digitally as well as like physical materials. So how do you organize a binder, or what kind of file system do you need for papers? We work on time management, so not only just when are your homework assignments due, how do you plan to do them, where does that actually fit, what kind of routines or patterns do you need to do those things after school, but also then looking at planning out your week. What do you have coming up? Oh, you've got this going on after school on Thursday and you don't have a lot of time to do your work. What assignments can be front loaded and doing ahead of time, maybe before they're due, so that when you have that busy day on a Thursday, you have the time to get it done. We work on study skills with these students, maybe making study plans if that's something that they need a little bit reinforcement in. What do good study strategies actually look like is an important conversation. We work on motivation, goal setting. So there's a lot of like what we call executive functioning skills, or I call them like life skills. Just how do you be on time to places, and how do you manage your week from week to week, and then how do you kind of look in advance. Guided study is like just one branch off of that. Guided study is a lot more like work completion and homework completion. So there's a small time management component to that. So they come into the room and it's a little bit more of like a check-in, a little bit more independent of, you know, what do you want to work on today? Here's what I'm hearing from a teacher. Let's make sure we get this assignment in. Or here's an assignment that I know is coming down the pipeline, an essay. Do you need help breaking it down? So it's a lot more like just time management and work completion to help them manage their time. Post-high school counseling, as we said, can be global, but then as Chris alluded to, that could be small group over some things that they need. So it is a little bit more targeted as well, not geared toward like everybody, but just what that small group might need or that student might need. Reading, writing support is exactly kind of how it sounds. It's a lot more working on reading and writing strategies, revisions of papers, finding content. Those staff members work really closely with their English teachers, maybe even a history teacher, to give them skills of just how to be a better writer or how to, you know, redraft a paper, and they're working really closely with their English teachers as well. Strategic math is a math content course, and so these are students that might just need a little bit more of a brush up in the content of math, and so it's not as much like a homework completion, but really working on, you know, how do I understand these math concepts and how can they make it more relatable, so just re-emphasizing what they're learning in math class with like an additional practice. We have strategic reading, which is working with a specific reading specialist. Kate is one of those at this campus. And so they're working a lot more on like reading comprehension and specific student strategies to help with that student. Just emphasizing, again, it's a little bit more tiered than your reading and writing support, so it's a lot more individualized to what that student might need. And Kate works really closely looking at data to just kind of see what might that student need in that moment. And then lastly is strategic studies. This is a freshman-only support. So these are students that have been pre-identified by sender schools that might struggle with executive functioning skills. So it's a little bit more of on a preventative measure. And then students it's a little bit of a balance of executive functioning skills, so the time management, the study skills, the planning, the organization, with also just creating like a sense of belonging to welcome them to high school. It can be pretty overwhelming for our freshmen, especially if they're coming from a smaller feeder school. So it's just this kind of getting them in the habit of like, at the freshman campus, we have study halls. Like, how do you use that time wisely and not just put your head down to relax? So just getting them in the good habits of doing their homework and learning some skills that maybe they just missed in middle school or maybe they never got taught. And it runs only first quarter. And then that's another way that we can see, is this a student that maybe needs more targeted support even after that class ends? Or are they really independent and kind of ready to go back into a study hall?
I will say, for some of these, I know I'm standing up here as a parent saying, sign me up for something, right? Like, so this targeted piece, I think it's really important to understand. When we're talking about some of these, the reading, writing, math, those strategies there at the bottom, those things, those are very, that's a data. We look at data points, especially on achievement tests, to see students that are at certain spots or in the percentiles within those tests. So that's very targeted. That is a very small number of students who we know need extra help in addition to being in the English class or the math class that they're in. So it's very, very specific, very, very targeted. Things like gap and guided study are just a touch less strict in that, but still we recognize the discrepant skills, and how we recognize those are through looking at our grade progress and things like that. So those are things that our problem-solving teams will look at, and quite honestly, the advisors who know the kids and know the programs are part of those conversations. And if they see a kid that's really struggling with that executive functioning, and really struggling may look different at school versus at home. My kids are hot messes at home, and I don't know how everyone says they do a great job at school. So what I see, I can't believe that sometimes is happening at school, but it's working. So those are things that, we need to be just kind of cognizant of. Like, there's a lot that's offered, and we want to make sure that we're tiering it in the right way. So there are some entrance and exit criteria to that. I will say, if you have some concern about your kids' study skills and things like that, the AAC is a place that can help with that, and that's more of a large-scale place where students can access, because there are people in there that can help them with those study skills.
That's where like those global come in, right? So if a student or even you recognize that, hey, you could get help in this, even if it's just a moment, right? Like you have a biology test coming up, drop into the AAC and get help with studying some specific study strategies that might work for you to help get that biology test so that you feel just a little bit more comfortable going into it, or organization. So there are, you can drop in for those skills, or that's when the AAC referral comes in. That's the advisor piece probably that can target that a little bit more, but a teacher could tag that in as well. Hey, I'm noticing like you're doing your homework, you're doing all the right things, but the tests just aren't going the way we want it to. Maybe drop into the AAC and let's work on a little test prep in there to get you ready for that test. Yeah, absolutely.
If I could, I see the hand. If you wouldn't mind writing that down, we'll take questions at the end. Someone will help you get a card. We'll get through this, and then, wonderful. Thank you. Our next section is the emotional supports.
Okay, that's me. So I just wanted to start out. I know we've talked a lot about the advisor program, but I think I almost don't think we can talk about it enough. And I kind of want to piggyback on what Sarah said too, because I had also written down here, we don't do anything in advisory. So, we're going to let you in on a little secret here, that's kind of the covert operation day where the advisor is walking around and observing. I, as a social worker, rely so much on eyes on students in the advisory, because that's when you see the subtle changes in a student, just how their body language changes, if something's going on, who are they talking to, are they not talking to those folks? You're just getting a really good everyday picture of how a student's functioning, and I see these guys nodding their heads. That's when the covert operation is happening. We don't need to tell them, it's between us. But that is really something that is so important about the advisor program. And when Chris and I were talking about this presentation, I just reflected on an advisor group that I had. I haven't had an advisor group for 11 years, but I had a student, and all of a sudden I just noticed her energy was getting lower and lower. And then I saw her stand up, and she had gotten so thin. And I asked her for a private conversation, and when we talked, she was developing an eating disorder. And it was that every day of seeing her and noticing that she was changing, noticing that her body was changing, and we were able to get her help right away. And so I think I just can't speak enough about the advisor system and how important it is. I also think there's a lot of social emotional instruction happening in the advisor room, and sometimes it's planned and sometimes it's organic. I would hear at the time I had girls, I would hear the girls start talking about like something that happened on the weekend, and then I'd be like, oh, let's like huddle up, let's talk about it. And we'd have an opportunity to kind of talk through a situation and think about it from multiple angles, for them to be able to address that and handle it in a different way. And that organic conversation, I think, was always really helpful and just a great opportunity for students. So when your kids tell you that they can sleep in and miss advisory, no, it's really important. Those are the days to be there. My own son does this to me, by the way, and so I love it when I have these nights coming up because it keeps me honest. And so I could say, oh, no, it's important. You've got to be there. Another area that I want to talk about is our health curriculum, and that's through the Kinetic Wellness Department. We have an amazing partnership with our Kinetic Wellness teachers. And so we had been seeing just a really high number of students experiencing anxiety. And our number one coping strategy was avoidance. And so we had, and you've heard us talk about the attendance plan and everything, and so that was part of the avoidance we were seeing, but avoidance in all kinds of different ways. And so, I think one of the parenting trends that I'm aware of right now as a parent and also as a social worker in the school is that we, as parents, we really want to eliminate obstacles and make sure we create as many opportunities as possible. And it's, I think, really important in terms of helping our kids find their next step into the future. And there's also a drawback, which is that our kids are not experiencing those difficulties that help them build the muscle to work through a challenge. And so when they get anxious about something, rather than trying something that maybe they tried in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade to kind of use that skill to branch through, they don't have as deep of a well to draw from, and that's something that we have been thinking about how to directly teach some of those skills. And so at the Northfield campus, our social workers paired with the health teachers and developed what they called the SAMS curriculum. It's Stress Anxiety Management Strategies is what that acronym stands for. And they did a pre and post test last year with students, and when the students came in, almost none of them had any strategies for managing thinking traps that happen with anxiety. And then when we looked at the data afterwards, it was like this, and then it went like this. And so it was really just an opportunity for the kids to have some more opportunities to think about all the different ways that they can manage anxiety and work through it, and that it really is a muscle to build and not something to avoid. Anxiety is very normal and healthy. It helps us know what to do next, helps us figure out how to work through problems, and so just helping our students with that. At the Winnetka campus, our partnership with our health teachers, one of the things that they've been doing is doing mental health first aid. And that is a national program. It teaches our students how to respond to signs of mental illness and substance abuse. And so they are going through it right now. There's a QR code outside my office that's had a huddle around it for the last 3 or 4 days, where the students are really active in just learning how to support peers and what to do if they are concerned. Our staff has also gone through mental health first aid, many of them, and have just raved about it, said that it's an incredibly helpful program for them even as adults. So I love that our students are getting to be a part of that as sophomores. Okay, so forgive me, I'm at the I'm almost need readers phase, and or not almost, I do. And I thought my font was big enough, and I didn't quite hit the mark. So the next one I wanted to talk a little bit about is clubs. One of the things that we know helps with mental health is making connections around similar interests. It's such a valuable strategy for mental well-being. And I know we do have students, and this is sort of, Sarah was talking about this too, like they're afraid to go see a teacher, they're afraid to go to the club. And one of the things I think as parents we can talk to our students about is how can you handle the 30 seconds of vulnerability it takes to walk in that room? That it really is only about 30 seconds. And for them to be thinking about what are those things they can do to help them walk through that door. How do they walk through the door to classes? Just thinking about other places they've been successful to get through that. But also advisors, social workers, all the people that are on students' teams. I've walked students to clubs before. I'm like, meet me after school, we'll go together. And that's a way for them to help manage that 30 seconds of vulnerability. But it really is a great place for kids to make connections. And I've seen students who were just absolutely struggling, barely making it through school, made it to a club, made some connections there, it changed their whole experience in a really positive way. So I can't emphasize that enough too. The SSC, another one of our acronyms. So that is the Student Support Center. It's a newish support that we have in social work, and it's really, it's a drop-in center. We didn't want to use that as our acronym because that's not school appropriate to have that one as the acronym for drop-in center, so it's the SSC. It's a space on the 3rd floor by our test makeup center, and what we have in there are lots of different stations of things that you can do for mindfulness, working on thinking, like thinking traps, cognitive strategies for restructuring your thinking. There are some sensory opportunities, and any student can drop into that room during a free period anytime that they want. We have it open periods 1, 2, 3, and 5, 6, 7, almost every day of the week. We do have students who are having trouble being regulated in class, and they may ask to leave and go to the SSC for a period of time. There's a social worker or a psychologist in there every period, just working with students, offering them strategies, helping them get back to class, or just helping them practice strategies. One of the things that the research shows is that it's really hard to use some of these strategies for regulating your anxiety or your emotions when you're in the heat of the experience, that practicing them when you're in a calmer state makes it more possible to access them when you're in a more emergency situation. And so we love it when students come in there and practice some of the strategies that they can use at other times. Okay. Last one in my global section is SAP. So SAP is our student assistance program. It's kind of a branch of the social work department. And one huge part of their work is around prevention. They lead the Mental Health Advisory Board, which is a group of student leaders. And these students come together and really talk about things that they know students are experiencing. And so they create, sometimes it's posters in the bathroom, sometimes it is on Instagram, just different strategies and techniques that these students have researched or that they've experienced themselves. They want to share with their peers, and they put that out. The other thing, I think probably everyone got an email this week about the Parent Support Network. The other thing the Student Assistance Program supports is this Parent Support Network, and it's parents who are committed to setting clear guidelines around substance use, and you can include your name and phone number if you are someone who is committed to having kids over at your house and having an alcohol-free, drug-free environment. So I think that's a great way to support our students. And then lastly, they received this grant, and they made all these goodie bags with like prevention messages on them, just to help our students get started and have ways to connect to the resources that they need. Okay.
You're still on.
I'm still going.
Yep.
Okay, now the targeted supports. So we do have students who walk into the social work office and they are in a crisis. So any student who walks in our office, we have a little form that we ask them to fill out, and any student who reports that they are a danger to themselves or they're worried about someone being unsafe, we see that student immediately. And we intervene to see, do they need immediate support? We're calling parents. We're really doing all the things to keep that student safe. We're working with health services. But that we treat as an emergency, and any student can walk in anytime and we'll see them right away. We also have students, like I said, that can use the SSC. They just need to regroup. And then we have students who just say, I really just think I need to talk to someone. And so for those students, we will set up an appointment with them within 2 to 3 days and do an assessment and just sort of see what's going on. And some of those students may let us know that they're really having some real challenges at school, and then we'll go to the graduating class team and say, I think this is a student who needs ongoing social work based on some specific data points, and we'll support that student with social work. A lot of times we'll meet with them 2, 3, 4 times, and we'll realize kind of what they need are some supports outside of school, and so we'll work with the student and their family to get what they need outside of school, because it's not necessarily a school-based issue, but the student definitely needs support. So I mentioned the Student Assistance Program. The other thing that they do is that they focus on the more biomedical issues with mental health, and so that would be like substance abuse and eating disorders. So our SEP social workers will also get involved when there's a violation, a substance abuse violation. So if a student gets caught with using substances either at school or a school event, they'll have a consequence, but really the most important thing for us is to give that student an opportunity to reflect on the behavior, and if they need help, get help. And so they'll do an assessment with the students. For some students, it'll be recommending like a psychoeducation program just to learn more about substance use. For some students, we'll be recommending treatment, that student is much further along the substance abuse continuum, and we really want to get them some help right away. And so we just want to get a sense of what students need. They also partner with health services for our students who have eating disorders and working out a plan to help them get what they need and be supported to reintegrate into school, whether that's around helping with meals and making sure that gets recorded to keep those students safe. Okay, one more thing. The last is our support and affinity groups. So we have several support groups running on the Winnetka campus right now. At Northfield, we don't usually run them until second semester. Usually the students are so busy as freshmen getting settled in that they aren't really ready to add that on. At Winnetka, they kind of run from year to year, so the students circulate through. And so some of those groups include students who've lost a parent or a sibling, students who have a parent that has cancer. We have a group for students who have siblings that have a disability, students with chronic health issues, and those groups meet between every week or every other week, and they're usually a rotating basis so that you only miss the class once a quarter. That we just give students an opportunity to come together. And then our affinity groups are usually around groups of historically marginalized groups, whether it be around race, religion, LGBTQ issues, and those students come together in those spaces, and they have facilitators. It's not directly connected to the social work department. So I think I hit them all.
I think you're right.
All right.
Now on to
Rebecca's
health.
up.
All right.
Global health.
Okay, we have heard about so many amazing spaces and opportunities that are available to all students. And some of those spaces include health services. So any student can come to health services at any time during their school day if they have a health-related issue or another issue that they need to talk with an adult about. I'm also going to touch on our Kinetic Wellness and athletic trainers. So athletes can access our athletic trainers for any injuries that they sustain during athletic activities or practices. And Kinetic Wellness offers various learning experiences related to wellness promotion. Our health curriculum is spread out through freshman and sophomore year, and it includes all kinds of things, including CPR and some mental health prevention and education. And then at Health Services, we offer that students can be assessed by registered nurses and receive personalized care for any health concern that's affecting them. We also have a medication authorization form that parents and physicians can sign. It's good for all 4 years that they're here unless dosages or medications change. And during students' personal learning time or free periods, they can access any of these spaces or supports. And we're hopeful that they'll use them to meet their needs, whether they're physical or academic.
If I point out just one thing, in that medical authorization form, put it on here purposely so everyone had that knowledge to know that if there is a medication that needs to be taken during the school day, it has to be taken through our health services office. So we need that form filled out from the doctor and from you, and that medication needs to be housed there. They shouldn't be taking medication during the day for a myriad of reasons. So that's why we want to make sure that families knew about that. That form is available on the website, on the health services site, so you can access that. And to touch on the training, the athletic trainer piece, what's really nice is it's actually open during the lunch periods as well. So if an athlete has, during lunch, has time to go to the training office, they can do that, so they don't have to be racing to practice or staying after practice to get the care or rehab they may need.
I think I would add to that too, some of the medications have street value that students take either for ADHD, and it's really important to us that those are contained in health services, that there's no one pressuring someone to give them their ADHD medication.
Absolutely. I'll move on to targeted services. Thank you so much. Thank you.
hard when you can't see the
The
what's
presentation.
behind us.
Okay. So we coordinate care for both chronic and acute health conditions that are affecting students. We also offer ongoing supportive care with a team approach. So we might work with SAP, our student assistance program, or our social work team. We work very closely with advisors and teachers, supporting students with anything from concussion to chronic health conditions that they've had for a long time, students with diabetes or seizure disorders, or anything like that. It's not on the slide, but I also should mention there is a new group, a student health issues support group that's starting. And we also write and share healthcare plans, individual healthcare plans with teachers. That's something that happens, let's say a student has a seizure disorder, and we want to make sure that their teachers know that they have that and what to do in case they have a seizure in class, things like that. And then lastly, if students are out of school for a health issue for a few weeks or longer, we can work with a Bridges program to facilitate a gradual supported return to class and coursework.
Bridges is open every period of the day with a certified staff member in there to help that transition back. Some students go right back to class and just need free periods, have a more structured setting, and then some students will come back in and they'll need to actually just take their day in Bridges to start to catch up and then slowly get released back into their regular schedule. So it's a very supportive environment where students have some freedom to get the kind of support that they need. We had a lot to say, didn't we? Sure did. A lot of resources here. I'm hoping there are some other questions that we collected. I can start off with a few of the other ones, and I'll speak them into the environment, and then anyone on the panel, including myself, can answer them. There was a question about executive functioning assistants, and I touched on it a little bit with the referrals to the AAC. Absolutely a good space, whether that comes from an advisor or a teacher or a student showing up and saying, I need that type of support, and there's an adult in those spaces that can help with that.
We also, if I can just add one thing, both academic assistance centers do have an organization station in the center. So students come in, there's a little checklist to help them. There's somebody there who can help kind of reorganize their backpack, get a folder, get some materials as they need. So that's also, it's a great place to drop in for those executive functioning needs.
Yeah, we have a great story that happened this year. You know, we had a teacher in class who also helps in the AAC at the other campus. And so she was like, why don't you come up? Let me help you organize your backpack. She just kind of saw that papers were just coming out the backpack. And so he comes up, gets, you know, she helps him get him all organized, got him a whole system. He goes home. Next day, his twin brother comes up and was like, are you the person that helps with the backpack? And she was like, that is me, come on over. And so, like, you know, both of them were able to get that help they need, and that was just a simple, like, word of mouth, right? That they're siblings and they're twins, and that was a great way for both of them to go, oh, I didn't know maybe I needed this, right? And so the teacher can make that referral,
advisor,
or anybody,
anybody.
Kid could
Yeah,
come
or the
in
kid
and
could
go,
just drop in.
you could go home and go, hey, I heard your backpack's exploding. They have this great organization station in the AC. Let's go get some help, yeah.
I think the other thing I would add about executive functioning is one of the things we don't often talk about with executive functioning is that, yes, it's about all the academic things, but it's also about social processes, and that we don't really think about when we are approaching someone to be social, that I observe you, I look at what you're doing, I see where your body is, I think about what I know about you, I think about what you know about me, and then I approach you, and then I think about what I'm going to talk about, and I think about what you're saying, and there's a whole lot of steps that are just unspoken that happen like that in the social environment. And so if for students who are really having trouble figuring out those steps, some of our folks in the Student Support Center can really talk them through thinking about those steps and thinking about them out loud and structuring them, because that's another area where I think sometimes we don't make that connection around executive functioning.
Yeah. And I would say it's completely developmentally normal for those things not to be put in place yet, right? Like, there's a lot of adolescents walking around that don't have that their brain just needs to catch up to that speed. So somebody that can come in and help them, maybe get caught up a little bit faster, it's completely normal. If you're hearing us talk and go, my kid could use help in that, it's completely normal.
Yeah, everything's on a continuum.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick in the AAC because we've got some questions, a collection in here. One that answered is just, I know there's some targeted supports, but can a student choose to drop in there? And that's absolutely during their lunch or during a free period, they can go in there and there will be support in both campuses in those spaces, and drop-ins are not only welcome, but please go home and tell all of your kids to go to the AAC. We are building that ship, and we'd like to make it bigger. So yes, please, please, please. There's a question about study halls. Are they counted as free periods? And I don't believe they are, but I just want to check.
No, at the freshman campus, they are scheduled to be there. If they are not there, they get marked absent. So every student, there are no free periods at the Northfield campus. So they are scheduled to be somewhere. And either they're in a study hall, they might be going to visit a teacher in which like their attendance would be cleared. They might be in one of these targeted supports instead of a study hall. So but that's only at the freshman campus that study halls exist, yeah.
We do not have study hall at the Winnetka campus.
Okay, right down the hall, we'll go to GAP and guided study. There's some questions around GAP and guided study. They want to know where it's located. If we told you the room number, would you know where that's at? I wouldn't, for sure not. It's on the third floor.
It's on the third floor.
Yep.
So, and just, these are programs that students, they're reserved for students who are struggling academically, significant academic struggles. And the kind of criteria to get into the program comes out of what we call a problem-solving team meeting. So generally that starts with the advisor, and it generally is grade-based, that the student is struggling significantly in multiple classes, that the team would then come together. At this point as a parent, you've probably talked to the advisor about the student struggles. And then the team gathers data and then looks at what interventions would potentially be the best for that child based on their struggles. You know, as a parent myself, I know everyone's like, sign me up, where can I get into this? But what we're really trying to encourage our students to do is to start kind of at the ground level, start with their teacher, start with the Academic Assistance Center. If you continue to have concerns, then you would go to your child's advisor.
And I would just, I guess, to be a touch more transparent, we say struggling, and I know struggling can feel and look different at different times. Students will struggle, and their grades will dip down to B's and C's, and sometimes that's a struggle that they might not have recognized before. Our teams really focus on students as they're getting into the D and F range, and that grade's a sustained grade. So we trend over a period of time of weeks where there's no improvement in those grades. It may feel uncommon or doesn't feel good in a household when a grade gets to a place that we don't like it, but those grades do trend up and down. We watch them. A student will struggle productively. I've got a C. I know that's not acceptable. I got to figure out how not to get a C. And that happens in classes, right? When we see that there are students that are still, they're working hard, and those grades are still not where we want them. They're in that D and F range. That's when our teams are trying to look, and those are the students to those limited spaces that we want to target those interventions for, because we want to help those students that we know are struggling beyond helping themselves. So just to be an offer of transparency. There's a question here about how we support our students acclimating into the Winnetka campus. And I know during our sophomore advisor program and throughout that, we have something called Bridge Builders. And those Bridge Builders help our students come into Winnetka and kind of understand what it's like to be in a bigger school, a larger school. They stay connected with them all through first quarter, and they're here the first day they come in. They stay connected during advisory. Advisors? Anything else?
Yeah, sophomore advisors also take their advisees on a tour around the Winnetka campus. Every single one of your children has seen the Academic Assistance Center, has set foot in there on the tour with the advisor, with the bridge builder. So if they tell you they've never heard of it, they have. And in addition to that, they take them down to health services. They walk them by social work. And
They do an awesome job.
They do an awesome job. That being said, it is overwhelming. There's no two ways. I mean, the building is huge. And so, again, I sound like a broken record, but just can't emphasize enough relying on your child's advisor to help with any question that you have about supports that are available.
We have a couple of questions here that are asking about supports for students that have ADHD and whether test taking and study skills and strategies for that. And I would say that from our kind of our global tier 1 level, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but that AAC, those are the place to start, and we'll recognize it. If those don't work, then that would be something that you'd want to reach out to the advisor so they could bring that to the team. And if there's a true struggle that's because of that diagnosis and they're having trouble and they're not engaging in making the progress on the executive function, then that group would be the right group to bring it to, because they could look for some other support, especially if it's affecting their grades and their attendance and things like that.
Yeah, I would also encourage your students to really sit down with the teacher and just have that meeting on how they're approaching their studying for this test. What does their studying look like? Let me show, take out your study guide. What have you done to prepare for this test? A lot of times they just need some tweaking here and there too. And the teachers know the exam, they know the content, and they can offer some really, really valuable strategies to help the student approach and kind of tackle that test. So that's during those free periods over here at Winnetka. Again, those are great times to get in and try to make an appointment with the teacher.
And the other question that, in the group of questions here, it asks about the Bridges program and kind of the access into the Bridges program. And Ms. Boston talked about it a little bit. It's usually initiated by the team when there's an extended absence due to a medical reason or a health reason. So students out for a long time and they try to re-engage. So that is usually something driven by the team. But if your student is out for a long time for a medical issue, you should absolutely bring that up to the advisor as a strategy. And it may only be a week, but maybe that week you need some extra help, and that might be a space that we could use. So that access is through your advisor. More times than not, health services, social work, and the GCT team will be the ones that kind of recommend that.
And typically when students are out for a period of time, we'll have a reentry meeting the very first day the student comes back, just to really talk about where are you at, what are you worried about, and to kind of calm the situation and ensure that there's a plan in place.
It's a great program. There's a lot of high schools that don't have anything like it. So it's a really great space for students to they can feel very overwhelmed not being in high school for several weeks. And so it's a great space for kids to come in and it's a little bit building on that executive functioning skill of how do I tackle this missing work that I'm expected to complete, or that assessment, and there's gonna still be new work coming in. So somebody sits to help that student, kind of see the big picture and just let them know, like, it's okay, we've got you. Yeah.
There's a question here about the skill set that colleges are saying our students are lacking, and I'm going to say, I'm not going to steal any thunder from post-high school counseling. They'll have a family night. If you do have that specific question about your student, the post-high school counselor is the right one. They are a wealth of knowledge. I know there's a lot of resources that you can go outside of the school to try to get some help with that post-secondary journey, but I would tell you that you should connect with your student's post-high school counselor. They have a vast experience, a wealth of knowledge, and they will set you in the right space depending on what type of post-secondary outcome you're looking for. So,
Can I just add one thing to that real quick? I teach all seniors and keep in touch, of course, with students. And it is relatively rare that I hear I wasn't prepared academically when I went to college. Frankly, it is oftentimes the opposite, where they're like, wow, I have a little bit of breathing room now that I'm in school. But it's the social kind of emotional piece and the grit and resilience, where I will have kids say, I wasn't ready for that. So I think just keeping in mind as parents, like how when your kid is really struggling about the test they have tomorrow and wanting to stay home, and just kind of thinking about 3 or 4 years down the road, what is that going to look like freshman year when they're faced in college, when they're faced with a test that they're not feeling 100% about. And are they gonna be able to draw back on that experience of, like, I just ripped the Band-Aid off and I went into school and I took the test, or I stayed home? Those are the struggles that I hear more from my previous students.
I guess our last question was, what can the NTPA do to help? And I would say to continue to do exactly what you're doing. There's a very, very strong partnership with not just one group, but with every class and every grade. And connecting us to the community is invaluable for us. So to continue to bring forth issues, continue to help us promote the things that are going on here, to continue to push us to do things like this and some other sensitive topics. I think it's really, really important that that connection is. The more that students see that home and school are like this, the stronger that is. And the other thing I would say is to completely normalize the experience of being a high school parent. And that is a very nuanced and difficult thing to go through. So normalizing the fact that there is struggle and not everybody's perfect, and my kid didn't do this perfect. We all have struggles and our kids have struggles, and to normalize that, because that's a normal part of maturation. That's part of who makes you who you are. So I think as we continue to have conversations like this and venues like this, and you have conversations outside in different venues, I think that's the support the school really counts on, and we think is invaluable. So thank you for everything that you guys have done, and you'll continue to do to make the relationship great. From everyone on the panel here, the administration and all the faculty, thank you for being out here tonight, and please continue to support New Trier, and we're going to do our best to do the best by your kids when you let them come to us every day. So thank you.